and welcome to Knowing You, Being You, which is a series of conversations with changemakers who know that change, no matter how big or how small, all starts with you. And I'm really excited to have Antonina Andreeva with me, who is a soul DNA coach and mentor. And she's also the founder of the Sacred Feminine Leadership Academy, which is a global platform of women who are ready to reclaim their wealth, their power, and their magic, but in a feminine way. And Antonina creates really high-touch, immersive experiences for feminine leaders who are being called to the forefront right now. So fantastic that she's here, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about sacred feminine leadership today. But first, Antonina, tell us a little bit about how you came to be where you are now.
First of all, Polly, hello, and thank you so much for this lovely intro, and thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure talking to a sacred feminine leader like yourself. How I came to be where I am now is simple and complicated at the same time. So would be 2 years now, I came into this notion, into this awareness that I myself, along with others, because there are others who are involved, are receiving a call, an awakening call, that is asking us to step forward and to claim radical responsibility for everything that is happening in our lives, in our field. And in doing that, really accelerate our development so as to hold space for others. Because what is happening is there is this wave of awakening that's going to take place, and there are many women who will be ready to bring forward new patterns, new ideas, new concepts, new just a lot of new ways of doing things and new ways of being things, doing and being that hasn't really been thought of this way before. And so there was this call about like preparing to welcome this happening. And it took me until this year to fully unpack that message, to fully unpack the notion of leadership, because it was like you get to go somewhere where you haven't gone before, as a woman, as a leader, as a creator, as an artist, as a soul, and as a businesswoman. And it's going to look differently. And so when you're being asked to kind of do that, like the first thing that you want to do is freak out, because it's like, whoa, this is so big. How am I going to do this? And so I really needed to take a step back and really unpack it for myself, understand that this was basically a call to live the feminine way. And in that, it turned out that what I thought was the feminine way was not the way, or rather there was some information missing. And likewise, this leadership piece had this particular view of leadership. So I had to basically unpack myself and repack again, to really kind of begin to be able to bring forward this information. And so the way it kind of came around is creating this sacred activating experiences for women who, like I said, who are in a position, like the best way I can describe it, who are like pregnant with this possibility of creation right now, and they need something different, something that hasn't been done before, to activate this process within themselves, to allow to bring this information through. And so this is kind of how the idea of these experiences came around, because it feels like we are at the start of a new paradigm, of a new wave. And in order to bring that through, we need to attend to things in a completely different manner. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. So 2 years of unpacking, repacking, creating, activating, solving, like designing. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure.
So you said that you what you thought was the feminine way had some bits missing from it. So obviously there's a lot of conversation about, you know, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and what that actually means.
Yes.
So what is it that you want to share now that's different about the feminine energy?
Sure. So what I have learned in my own journey is like a lot what we have been taught about the feminine has actually come from a masculine perspective, because we live under the notion of patriarchy. And so the best way to explain it is, imagine if you lived in a single parent family, and that single parent family consisted of a father, right? And so the father would tell his daughters about what it's like being a woman, but naturally there's only so much that can be shared, because it's a singular perspective about a plural conversation or a plural emotion. And that's like the first bit that I found. And then I found that moreover, you know, as a feminine, we are cyclical beings, and yet because of this notion of a singular perspective, we live in a singular perspective. And so there's a lot of disconnect that happens between who we are and the situation that we're in. And once you start unpacking that, you realize that in doing so, we're disconnected from our true nature. We're disconnected from the picture at large. We're disconnected from our intuition, which is an integral piece to who we are, how we operate, and we do things. Like we know, when we do know, like that we as women, we're intuitive, but it's like we're indoctrinated in living in a very different way. And so there's always a thing about second guessing ourselves on so many levels, as I said, from physical, mental, emotional, and so forth. And so femininity, really, it's not about, it's about reclaiming those pieces of ourselves and really relearning how to live in a way that honors our true nature.
And can you
owning our true nature and kind of expressing that.
So what does being cyclical mean? Because we live in quite a linear society, but what does it actually mean in terms of how we act?
Sure. So if you think about it, right, being cyclical means that we as women cycle. So we have a 28-day cycle. Not only that, there is a cycle that's connected to the earth, and then there is the galactic cycle. And so that kind of opens up the and you know, that starts opening our understanding that we live in a linear society, but we tend to operate in cyclical motion, right? So not only, so we operate cyclically day to day, month to month, and also year to year. It's the best way to really understand that is to look at nature, right? There are certain patterns in nature, or rather like that. And it's kind of how women operate as well. And once you start reclaiming that part of yourself, you begin to you begin to understand like how different you have been raised to be, or you have understood yourself to be, and how natural the cyclical pattern is for you as a woman. That would explain to you why there are times that you feel out, and why there are times that you are in rest and recuperate, and there are other times that you are ready to come full force. I mean, if we look at where we're now, right? Today is the 2nd of May. Yesterday was the crossover of seasons where spring is at its peak, Beltane, right? And we're just entering the summer. So it's this awakening of nature and really coming into the fullness. And I'm sure a lot of women will agree with me, as you will have, that there is this inner desire to be more out, you know, all the ideas are kind of feeling right. There's a rightness in there of ideas, of energy, of creation. And so this pattern is is quite natural for us. And that's kind of like the first thing. That would also explain that although we're indoctrinated so that's kind of the basis of it. And then you start looking at, like, you know, how we're encouraged to live our life, and you can see how out of cycle that is with where we're meant to be. And also with this advent of this kind of I would say remembrance about our cyclical nature, you just begin to see just how out of sync we are as beings, and just how out of sync we are in terms of just our day-to-day living, our creation, because we as women are uniquely designed not only to be cyclical, but to act as vessels for the divine, just like we act as portals for bringing through children. So there's so much more to our uniquely designed structure, which we have been discouraged to remember. It's like we are asked to talk about, it's like, for example, we are encouraged to go and have babies in the hospital, forgetting that, again, we as species are uniquely designed to give birth. And we have been doing so for centuries and centuries, since the beginning of time, since the first human has has appeared on Earth. And yet suddenly it's this thing about having to go to the hospital, being supported by a medical team, administer drugs, have surgical intervention, and so forth and so forth. And I'm not taking away anything from the medical profession. Like, that's awesome that we have advanced so far. And yet there is a piece of like, but we have always done it and we will always do it. There's a thing about if a woman is decapitated mid contraction, right? It's a glory example. I know, glory. The process will still take place.
Wow.
And so taking a step back and thinking about it, like, that begins to tell you just how powerful we are, how strong we are, and how, again, we're uniquely designed to have this notion of bringing things through our connection to something that is beyond what our eyes can see.
Yeah. So how does tapping into that feminine energy and remembering that
Mm-hmm.
our true nature help us to reconnect more to ourselves and become more of ourselves? What is it that changes?
Sure. What changes essentially is you begin to tap into your own intuitive process. Like, really, if you were to simplify this, it's about like taking the notion that we are a divine vessel, and so taking a step back and just realigning ourselves with certain patterns helps us to tap into our intuition and begin following the inner impulse instead of the outer impulse. We're trained, indoctrinated to follow the outer whereas here we're talking about tuning in inner and following that desire, following those and allowing ourselves to trust where it's leading us, what is it asking us to do. And the minute you kind of switch from external stimuli to the internal stimuli, you will have noticed that your connection with yourself, essentially, when we talk with the divine, we really talk about aspect of ourselves, strengthens and potentially, and you begin to have, it's like a dial-up, like it's like you go from 3G to 5G. So instead of like from time to time, you'll get idea, this is a constant flow of you being in conversation with the universe. That's probably a good way of putting it. And so suddenly, suddenly you stop again, like relying on somebody to tell you what to do, and somebody to show you the way, and instead of being led, you begin to lead through your heart and your soul and that connection.
So that, I mean, what you're saying is actually a massive shift for us as women to have to make, but to then make that inner leadership context, that's an even bigger step, isn't it?
Absolutely, because it goes against everything that we have been taught. We have been taught to look at or look at the masculine and be led by the masculine, whereas the paradigm shift that really wants to happen is for us to kind of stand back and create the space within ourselves, so that to hear or to establish that connection, and then allow ourselves to be led by that connection, and kind of, in a way, the paradigm that we're in right now, we get to go fast because we are finely tuned and antennas to something that is beyond our eyes. It is like, this is the time that we need to step into our leadership, because the masculine hasn't yet gained this awareness. And so they're going through a different stage of their, I would say, spiritual development. And it is like up to us to show the way through our our process and through our action, that there is another way to be and do things. And so in a way, it is a massive paradigm shift, but it's very much needed. And that's what's going to create a difference. And in a way, it's already happening. There are pieces in there, but more and more women are asked to step forward and really take the lead. But
and I think one of the very important things that I see is that women who we think of leaders as being at the top of big organizations or whatever, but it's really important to understand that the leadership role is anyone's and everyone's.
Thank you.
And that, whatever demons we may be battling about our own self-worth or even understanding our purpose, the leadership takes many, many different forms.
Thank you. Yes, that was the big one to unpack for me as well, because when I first kind of started receiving that notion, I was like, leader, I don't know, is this information for me? Where do I pass it on? Because I too had that notion that a leader is somebody who's, I don't know, on top of the mountain, receiving commandments. I thought that position is already taken, but actually it really starts, there is a piece in your life, or there is a place in your life where definitely a leader, and really you can't be a leader for others until you're a leader for yourself. So there is a big call about taking that inner leadership, and from that there'll be a second piece that comes in, where once you figure out like your internal stuff and you clear your field, what happens, you begin to affect the environment around you. And so naturally your kind of your inner becomes outer, and there are particular pieces that you're particularly uniquely designed to create a difference. And so when you unpack all of that and you get really clear on your channel, they just naturally begin to come through, and that's how you become a leader of something else. But that cannot happen until we go through stage one.
And that's, to me, that's one of the other big differences about the feminine way, is that it's an understanding that in the masculine way, it's I deal with everything. It's just me. Whereas in the feminine way, it's about saying there are lots of moving parts here. My role is to lead on one specific part, and that's, to me, that's why, as you know, collaborative working is so important. Is because by coming together, we're giving the whole. If that makes sense. Absolutely. And
that's actually kind of the thing that happens naturally, I think, as we claim responsibility and as we kind of put all these pieces into place, naturally our vibration, our field raises, and so we begin to attracting others. Nurturance leadership is definitely about collaborative effort, because there are a couple of things that are in place there, but really it's not only will you attract others in your field who think alike, and it's just much more easier to make to make an impact that way, but also as you raise your vibration, you come out of the notion of the kind of you come out of the notion of it's just me, and realize that there are many, so the alpha wave brain, as it were, in scientific approach, that there are many others who think and operate like you. And so definitely the healing of the feminine involves healing the divide that we have between ourselves as women, thinking that we have to do it ourselves. I have to carry the weight of your shoulder. I think that's the wound that we all have, right? Whenever I kind of fall out of the notion, that's the first place I go, oh my God, I need to do it all by myself. I can't handle it, blah, blah, blah. That's not how we're designed. We're designed to live as a society. We're designed to have the support of our peers and others like us. We're designed to solve through dialogue, through conversation, through collaborative hive mind. Thank you. That's. I just remembered my dream yesterday. So hive mind.
Hive mind, yeah. I think that is such an important message, isn't it? That we need to get through, is that it's not about, well, this thing with, it blocks us off from receiving, because the feminine way is as much, it's a two-way give and receive, and
absolutely,
and you have to open yourself up to that.
Yeah, and one of the ways is through the support of of your circle, of your cycle, right? and actually you're so right, like especially online we see us operating as a singular structure, whereas although we may be singular structure, we're moving towards a common goal. So that's why, I really appreciate the kind of work that you do, because your message is very much like, remember that you don't have to do it alone. Remember that you can move forward in this kind of hive mind. And as I said, the circle is very much how we're going to be processing things, like how we process things in a cycle and how we move forward. So in the days where we worship nature and we were cycling with nature, like the circle was a very important part of who we were being. We would sit in a circle, we would share, and that energy, that's how we would clear the energy, like everything, and these days, like all the frustration, all the kind of negativity, anything that's happened, we carry into in our field, and so it kind of sips into everything we do. Whereas having the space to share and to open up and to be seen, to be heard, and to be supported really allows this energy to clear. And then whoever comes in, into the circle, kind of like everyone receives equally as it gives. So it's just a remembrance of this flow, the ebb and flow of life again.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously in the online space in particular, visibility is a massive issue for most women. It's that thing of being seen, but it's actually the first step to that is that allowing yourself to be seen and heard within a supportive circle of women.
Yes, I think there's two ways to it. The thing that you mentioned, and plus there's a thing about visibility having to be a thing that is consistent. And again, if we start tapping into the notion of the cycle, consistency for women is completely different than consistency for men. Men are like the sun, masculine. It's very much singular and kind of like the sun. So the sun is like it always shines and then it doesn't, right? Whereas the feminine is more like the moon. There are many faces to the moon. There are many phases to the moon. And so again, it's just understanding those that we operate differently, and so the visibility is like there's an expectation for us to be keep going and being always. And of course, at some point you're like, "Whoa, can I take it? I'm just going to turn on my computer." Yeah.
I think this is exactly why you see in the online space, you see a lot of women. They're there, and then boom, they're gone, and then they're back again.
Yes, because it's just you can't do it. How many times, like I'm sure you have, I know I've experienced, like I'm gonna be on this, and then you burn out. And that's and what I found in my research, like that's one of the ways that us not honoring ourselves shows up. It's burnout, it's depression, it's disconnect, it's it's, I want to say, adrenal issues, it's glandular fear, it's anything that forces us to slow down and take stock and reevaluate and reintegrate and rest. And
in terms of business or sort of just general living, that actually has huge implications for the way that we work, you know, if we're an employee, or how we set up our business. I mean, it's one of the primary reasons I ask all my clients to look at their energy flow over the week, because it might be that you hit Monday morning, like, bam, I'm gone. But by Wednesday afternoon, you're like, and so you've got to work with that. And yes,
with the cycle.
You might need to work 5 days a week, but it's what you do on the days when you're coming quieter, and what you do on the days when you're, you know, so you bam out your Facebook lives or your whatever it is.
Right. If you're not aware of this, how, like, then it becomes a problem. Like you said, like there's this push-pull energy. I need to do this, but I have to do this. But internally, you don't want to. But then if you get the cycle right, you'll be like, hey, why not do this when I'm feeling, when my out is, you know, when my she is out, when she wants to be sociable and talk, because we all have those moments. And it's, once you become aware of that, then you can step away from this mentality that we've been indoctrinated, that it's on, push, burn.
And it's
the face of the moon.
It's immensely liberating as well then, because you just say, oh, it's okay. I see what it is, and I don't have to feel bad about what it is. So, you know, whatever it is that you're not doing.
Because behind the scenes, every woman, trust me, is feeling the pressure. And so that's why I say that even online, you know, there's a lot of talk, like online. Why? Because people are quite progressive, you know, they have taken time to attend to their personal development. They have taken time to find this information, because they realize they are the business. And so therefore, if they don't attend to their emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being, they cannot advance. But even there, like, I felt like there's still a disconnect, because we're still soldered within the masculine framework. So it's like, oh, here is a 5-step system to locate your cycle and work it, you know, or push, sort of like, so it's still delivered in a masculine environment. And so there's kind of we're still figuring out, like, whoa, okay, so do I trust myself, or do I trust an external force? And so that's why, again, it's important, once you know how you operate, once you know where you come from, there will be no need to give your power away to any external circumstances, any externalized advice, anything or anyone will be able to tell you what to do and how to do things, because and that's like the start of having agency over your particular brand of magic. Because, like, we're all magic, like I said, we have on a cellular level, we're uniquely designed to bring something, a different perspective to the world. Why? Just because, like, that's the God spark. But without putting this into place, it will be challenging to bring that through, because you'll be pulled and pushed and prodded and kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it is the big challenge of creating change, isn't it? Is shifting that dynamic into one where we are empowering others to trust themselves, no matter what we're doing. It's that there's still that mentality of, I'll fix you.
Yes.
But
before I fix myself.
Yeah.
Whereas here we're asking, fix yourself first, feel whole, and from that space, and this is what the spiritual religious texts talk about abundance, is this total flow that comes from being fully aligned, fully at peace with, you know, each of these pieces. And what I wanted to add to this, like, part of the call that's been receiving is about the feminine principle being very comfortable with the flow and the flow of abundance. So because there's going to be a changeover in leadership real soon, it's like we're asked to get comfortable with handling wealth, which I also learned is a feminine principle, because in matrilineal societies, the feminine handled, the masculine had certain connotations of power, and then the feminine had land ownership and was responsible for wealth. And so there is a call to get all of these pieces into place and begin creating and operating this new paradigm, businesses, or this new ideas, like really growing the seeds, right, that are wanting to come through, that will create a large shift in our monetary system. And that's how we're going to implement the nurturance leadership and begin changing the current structure, because there will be more women in position of power, in the new positions of power, encouraging. And we as women, we're quite maternal, right? We're not going to like create a pile of money and just like sit in it. No, it's not in our nature. We're going to start looking at like, how else can we change our environment? How else can we support, others? Where can we improve? Like a woman who is wholesome and happy and nourished, she cannot help but want to recreate that in the outer, in her outer reality. She cannot help but want to grow a garden, tend to the garden, feed everyone, and make everything happy. And so like once we get those pieces, that's how it's going to be. So it will be directing the money currents towards the things that the issues at hand, perhaps agriculture, perhaps the educational system. And this, in the very beginning conversation before we turned the camera, we said about reweaving. So it's like reweaving the new patterns, the fabric of reality.
Yeah. So this month you have set up, and I know it's been a long time in the planning, but you have an amazing experience coming up. So even though, I know you're fully booked now, aren't you? So no one else can get on there, but it would be lovely to hear a little bit about what you're planning, because it is such a magical idea that you put together.
Yeah, so it's going to be a transformational adventure. We're going to be sailing on a boat around the Greek islands, and I chose that particular destination because, for many reasons, but there is the big reason is because I'm sorry, I'm in a cafe now, so you're having some background. Because the islands are located in the way of the spiral, because of course the Greek pantheon of gods, we have the head figure Zeus is actually the prototype for what we understand as a godhead in our consciousness. So there will be a lot of individuation from the godfather, but also from I feel like a lot of women on the path, there is a piece that needs to happen where we individuate from our Heavenly Father and from our Father. And another thing that I wanted to attend to is I wanted to take these women, take them out of their everyday environment, invite them to do something different and go on an internal journey as well as an external journey, and then also really attend to their physical body. Because a lot of the time when you do conscious expanding practices, what happens is your body needs to catch up, and so then you have the cycle of push and pull, or expansion contraction. And the best way to attend to the body is to actually immerse it in water. Like the water really helps to regulate the content, and Aegean Sea, which is where we're journeying, has the highest mineral content because it's like the smallest sea. And so just the regular attendance to the body system will really help integrate these changes much faster. So we would take something that would, take a certain amount of time, and we're kind of going to be able to master it, re-qualify to a much shorter, a deeper transformation. So I'm very excited about that, very excited to visit some sacred places, because another thing that I kind of acknowledgement that I receive is that sacred places hold a lot of particular energy, and so they act as catalysts of remembrance for others. So there isn't much you have to do. You just have to come into the space, and then there'll be an exchange that happens with your own energy system and with the system of the land, and there'll be a certain kind of activation and remembrance that is unique for you. So what I would receive from a space and you would receive is quite different. So Greece originally is quite a feminine, has quite a feminine energy, and it's actually as I said, Adi Shakti was like the origin of Adi Shakti. It has obviously rich history, lineage. So yeah, it's very excited. I can't wait to experience all of that. I kind of share it with the women, and I hope it's one of many.
Yes, I hope so. It's a.
I trust.
Trust. It's one of many. Well, thank you so much. for joining
Thank
us.
you.
And that's been, I mean, it's just, well, you know, I love to talk to you anyway, but,
Yeah.
but really, really helpful, I think, for people to understand more about how we need to touch base with ourselves more in order to change what's outside of us.
It's about be more and do less, but it's such a simple truth and profound truth, but quite one to comprehend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to find out a little bit more about you, I will obviously put your links underneath the video, but where's the best place to come and find you?
I think, I'm sort of transitioning from one brand to the other. The best places to come find me online and connect with me. My word of the year is intimacy. So I really want to welcome people into my tribe with whom I've personally connected and shared something, who share my ideals, who share my values. So the way I'm restructuring my business is there'll be a personal connection first. So, if you're listening to this and you're resonating with this, hit me up on Facebook, add me as a friend, say hello, and let's open a conversation and go from there. Like, I'd rather do that than, have a faithless, just a vast tribe of people that I don't know.
Depth,
I'm building
not breadth.
one brick at a time. Yes.
Ripples and all the rest of it. I could go on for a long time about that. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and have fun in Greece.
Yay! Thank you.